Hey folks, welcome to the podcast. I'm happy to have you here and to introduce you to my guest, Sean Wilkinson. Hey Sean, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, good to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, we've just been landing together for a few moments and yeah, touching into some topics that are potential explorations today. And yeah, I just also want to say welcome and um, give some context for listeners. So you and I met at Circling Festival this year in the Netherlands, which you co-lead, co-facilitate, co-hold the space with John. And yeah, I just had a wonderful time at the festival. Enjoyed meeting you. We got to hang out a few times in Amsterdam after the festival, and here we are now with space for a podcast recording. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Yeah, that was our 10th anniversary, and Stefan, who's partner of yours in these explorations, he's a good friend and co-explorer. Yeah, on the Europe side.
Yeah.
And when he brought you and was it Lando? Lando, yeah.
Landon. Yeah.
Landon, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like oh yeah, like there's that famous movie Highlander. Do you remember that one?
I haven't seen it, no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I'm showing my age. But it's like a movie about immortals, and there's this thing that they lived for centuries and all these different lives. But when they saw another immortal, they were like, even if it was like 50,000 people, they wouldn't see the fellow. And one of my circling mentors used to use that analogy. But there was definitely noticing you in the field and like, okay, something, I could feel something, some resonance in you.
Yeah, the word recognition comes up for me as I'm hearing you, and I get curious about. I want to double click on this experience, the resonance and the the experience you had. Can you say more about the? Yeah, can you say more?
I think there's, from doing a lot of practice in this field, like exploring presence, especially in we spaces and groups, looking at, from what I know of your work and your journey, very much into integral and developmental theory, spirituality. So there's something about meeting someone that's had a similar level of commitment or sensing a similar level of commitment. It's just, I think it's a feeling. I can also see signs of it, and the way you hold yourself or the way you share your experience. It's not too dissimilar to, I used to be a tennis coach and working with elite tennis players. And actually, like when I walk past the tennis club now, I actually only need to see the way a player walks or even picks up the ball, and I can pretty much tell you that whether they're a serious player or not. By the time I even see them getting ready to serve, I don't even need to see the serve. I'm like, okay, this dude can play, or this is a recreational player. So there's something, a simple thing of just familiarity with the practice and the space, but then it's more subtle signs that we cultivate in these practices.
Yeah, I want to hear more about the subtle signs and what you notice.
I think what I notice being with you now is, which is probably what I was using in the festival, is my kind of subtle awareness, or even my sense of awareness kind of thickens. So it becomes palatable. It's like almost like the air around me now is suddenly thick. and in that thickness, it seems like I can access different kinds of sensing or intelligence. It's a little bit like being high, but without that sense of like, I've got to stick this out now until it wears off. Like I can navigate it and some autonomy with it. And at the same time, it also takes me where it takes me.
Yeah, as I'm receiving you right now and hearing you, there's for me, I often say I feel like I'm on drugs all the time these days, just walking through the world on mushrooms or feeling high. Just yeah, it's like a persistent, pervasive experience lately.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I first came into circling, you mentioned John Thompson, my kind of co-partner in Circling Europe. He and I were in San Francisco, and we were just we'd been doing integral practices for years, coaching and therapy and meditation. When we heard about circling, it was like, and when we first saw it, we're like, oh man, this is better than anything we've done before. This resonates so much. It's so much more natural and fluid, and but deep as well. And we were kind of finding our way with it. I remember being in this cafe with him, and it's like, you know, suddenly the tree behind him was coming alive, and like I was getting this distorted perception, and I was feeling really good, and like, and then I was a bit like, John, I don't want to sound weird or anything, but I'm having a kind of trip experience. Like, what's happening with you? And he's like, yeah, I'm glad you said it. It's something similar. And then I think it was pretty moments like that. That was when we were just like, yeah, we're fully in. This is what we're now devoted to.
Yeah. Yeah, the word devotion touches something in me. You mentioned it earlier a few moments ago as well. And yeah, I get curious where the devotion comes from in us to be in these spaces and do these we space practices like circling and yeah, be together in this way from this place.
Yeah. Yeah, when you say it, I'm like, there's definitely a part of it which feels like a gift and um like an intuition and a commitment that, you know, I could be proud of, or like, I'm so glad that's been given to me. But there's also a part of it that feels like necessity as well, like something very human about it. Like there was definitely things I was struggling with, or things I wanted to be going better in my life. And so, and actually I don't think I even knew then how much actually difficult like feelings and experiences and unmetabolized pain there was actually in me. So I think, yeah, there's this kind of expanding side of it, but there was also this kind of necessary side of it that, yeah, that I'm also grateful for. But it's yeah, maybe the less glamorous side of it. Yeah.
And what's coming online and opening up for you now in your practice and way of life?
Well, it's, I like the question because I like this this beginning where we've kind of touched on, you know, almost a psychedelic transformational experience. And that's been such a big thing, the last 10 years, leading this practice and experiencing this practice. And yet what I find myself more moving towards these days feels like something that feels more simple and almost like every day. I don't know how to describe it, but like one of my recent courses is about how to set boundaries, or create the kind of boundaries you want for your life and the kind of relationships you want. And what I find in that is often that's bringing me to like a more simple engagement with my life. But actually, it's not such a like psychedelic experience, what I'm finding through it, but I call it more like a causal like experience, where it's like these gentle letting goes and these little moments of needing kind of a personal courage to stand up for something, and it actually being humbling, because for all these like deep fancy developmental practices I've done, and which come with also very fancy sophisticated kind of theory, this moment where I have to say to someone, oh, what happened there? Because I just felt an impact. And then, or letting someone know, oh, I really need to sense like more curiosity if you're going to say something about my experience. Or like when I have to stand up and say these kind of things, I find that it's not this expansive psychedelic experience, but it feels like it puts me really in touch with something core. And like these gentle relaxations and releases, and I find that realigns my life more powerfully actually than these kind of long eye gazing explorations and revealing all these vulnerabilities and exploring these subtle awarenesses together. Still loves that, and I will do that, but I actually find myself more often now, especially in practice, setting clear lines and clarifying roles, and asking people what their vision is, and then how they relate to the beliefs they have about their vision. And so I find that's coming online, or it's almost the leading edge of my practice now.
As you're speaking, the words re-entering reality come up for me. And I like that you I like that you use the word causal, because my experiences in these practices, we keep going out and keep going out and keep going out and sink deeper and deeper into awareness. And there is a re-entering reality that happens sourced from a much deeper place. And how do we move through the world in a functional, useful way where we can state what we want and set boundaries, and that's a tremendous passion for me.
And yet not to also, like, we cultivate the subtle awareness, so we want the wisdom and everything we've gained from our journey to be like the best of that to be integrated, but also to see where we were attached to the psychedelic experiences, and there was the seeking inside of that was also had pain and fear of dying and things in it that kind of were leading to this also subtle graspings, and also just the vulnerability of being human, and like doing well in your work, and having a good relationship with your partner, and buying a house maybe, or like all these things. they're still good challenges, I find, even though, yeah, there are some unbelievably amazing things I've learned about the inner world. Yeah. And there's also something about, I've been writing an article on boundaries and how it relates to these kind of deeper practices. And there's sometimes when I'm reading it, I can like take the position of like someone who's not really into meditation and stuff. And I imagine sometimes on some of the sentences, they're like, duh, like, is this what you realized after all your time? And partly because they're right. It's like, yeah, I'm still learning stuff that's pretty simple.
Yeah.
But actually, I think there is something though of like the example would be where one part I was writing where actually saying to someone, oh, actually right now, I don't want to go deeper into this. Or even, oh, when you ask me that question, even though I really like to explore like deeper things in me, something's telling me no right now. And because you're sensing something about how you're being approached, or it just doesn't resonate somehow. And so that's where I'd be like, normal person would be, well, in my imagined normal person, it's like, of course you're not going to share something that's like about your past, or if you don't want to. But I think when you've been into these practices for a few years, or you're really wanting to open up, it's like it becomes this like amazing thing that you can have these experiences of opening something that's painful with someone who meets you not as a therapist but just in presence, and you have this human moment, and suddenly you integrate this deep experience, and then but it feels intimate with the other person. So when you have experiences like that, you're like not only is this like an amazing experience, and it's kind of healing this things inside of me. It's like it's psychedelic, so I would do this for fun, like this is amazing how. But then in that, then it's suddenly like it's not actually like you can just do that all the time. Like you can do it in practice, in groups and where the intention, but to be able to have that all the time, even with people who are practiced, you need to have quite a lot of capacity to kind of. So it's not surprising that when we get into these practices, we kind of, because we know can be hard to open up any opportunity, we want to go for it. But in that going for it, we can lose the subtlety or the simplicity, which a normal person might be like, come on, you got to say no there. Can easily override these boundaries. And yeah. What I'm finding is reintegrating that or realigning that is I actually call it an advanced practice, actually, because I haven't met anyone that hasn't got like lots to discover there, actually. Whether they've had a lot of trauma in their past or they haven't, they've still had a lot to do, even though it seems like someone who's had a nice upbringing will have a lot more natural capacity usually to strong boundaries and be in deep experience, but still they still yeah
And as I'm hearing you, what's happening, well, first of all, I noticed the body's moving quite a bit. My hips are moving, and yeah, the arms are moving a bit, so I noticed there's a movement happening in the body, which feels nice, feels good to name. And I also really feel I hear the word priorities as you're speaking. It's like, okay, we're in this we space together, and there's a lot of objects in our field that we can explore together. And it's hilarious in a way, and also, like you said, some people would say like, what do you mean that this is some advanced practice? But it's like sometimes you know, people come to me, and of course I do this in all the ways that I do it, but you know, someone will come to me and go, you know, I need to pay this credit card bill and I feel so much shame about it, and no, and I don't want to take the action, and it reminds me of when I was a little kid. And it's like, okay, like if you're going to pay this credit card bill, like how would you do it? And they're like, well, I'd open up my phone and you know, press this button to open the app. And it's like, cool, like, you know, do you feel able to do that in this moment? Like, yeah, I guess so. Like, okay. So then you open up the app, and before you know it, in a couple of minutes they've paid the credit card bill. And it's like, you know, we could go into the shame, we could go into what happened when you were a kid, we could go into fear or whatever, and we can also just feel the feelings while doing what we need to do, and then come revisit that later. And that for me is like, that's what's coming up for me hearing you, is the prioritization. And there's a lot to be present, there's a lot to be present to in every moment. So discerning, there's a discerning in what do we want to prioritize.
Yeah, I like this example. It's there's that thing in me where I'm like, oh yeah, I want to like zoom in a little, and because it's one thing that I hear in that is, again, this desire to grow and to heal our past. And it's like every opportunity where there's a challenge or a struggle, it's like, oh yeah, let's go into the shadow, like that's coming up.
Yeah.
And what I actually see there is, like, when we talk about boundaries, we often feel it's about like saying yes or no to other people, and that's such a huge part of it. But I also think it's like yes and no internally. So like, and the line for me that I most kind of point to is actually the line between what I would say is my inner experience, and then what is kind of, I don't know the best way to say it, but like my self-conscious experience, or my kind of normal consciousness, which I would actually say is more an exterior experience. Or like, or how I'd say it more is like depth. I like this Wilbur distinction, that depth is actually something that's unseen. Like it needs to be discovered. It's like on the inside, and you can't see the inside other than through kind of contemplation or revelation. And so there's this line between what we can discover on the inside of our experience, and that line, I think is kind of a sacred line internally for ourselves as much as for other people. And I call it like the guardian of your experience kind of lives on that line. And so I love the Thor movie. We spoke about this before. Yeah, there's this amazing character. He's kind of I think he's called Hammerdell or something, but he's like the gatekeeper. And I think it's such a good depiction, because he's such a powerful figure actually throughout the movies. Like, he's not easy to he's not easy to trick. He's kind of stoic, and he's like kind of serious, but actually you notice that all the heroes really like him and really trust him. But he can see into far galaxies, and I find that is like the part of us that intuitively knows. It's like that little sense we get of like, oh, something's not quite right here. Something's a bit off. And so that little like spider sense, that for me is like this guardian or this gatekeeper. And what I find is it even reacts to the way we even contemplate in ourselves, or like, or do shadow work on ourselves. And actually, this guy with a credit card example, it might be in some moments that it's like, hang on a second, this is a persistent challenge for me. I've got a bit of space. Let's go into this. Right. And the guardian's like, yes, actually you come in now because you need to discover something.
Mhm.
But then in some moments it's like, hang on a second, I've been doing therapy for like 5 years on this. I've, you know, I've been bringing it up in all my men's groups, or hang on a second, is there some way I'm even crossing my own line here by continually like opening up? Is that really what I'm being called to?
Mhm.
And then, yeah, often then there's a more honest, direct way to engage with it. Yeah.
When you said the more honest and direct way to engage with it, I noticed something um, just under my rib cage, or more in my sternum, in my core, and somatically and in the field, it feels like where I've been sourcing these just practical, emergent, in the moment truths, or
Mm.
yeah, just truths that need to be shared in the moment, which
Mm.
we've been talking about and talking all around in the recording today. But I found in recently there's this practice of, when things get a little bit staticky, or it feels like the room is spiraling a little bit, it's like my practice right now is dropping in and connecting to this place that was just evoked or contacted as you were sharing, and um, going, what do I have to say from this place? Like, just with this gesture, if anyone's listening and not watching, my hands just kind of touching my core and then moving out in front of me, of like, here's a reveal, here's a gift, here's a gesture of my truth in this moment, like on a personal human level. This is what I want, this is what would work for me, this is what I'm wanting to have happen. And I've actually come
Mm.
up with some really fun games in relationship to this. Like, um, yesterday I was having a conversation and I looked at the person and I said, yeah, so if we sat here and we talked about this for 2 hours and unpacked it in a bunch of different ways, at some point I would get to the point where I told you, and then I just let whatever came come out of my mouth. It was like I had no idea what I was going to say, but I just teed it up and then let whatever words flow.
Yeah.
It's like,
How did it impact?
oh, it was awesome. I mean, there's a somatic experience when a deep truth is revealed. It's like both, I mean, I know you know this, like both people oftentimes go like, ah, like both
Yeah.
nervous systems relax, there's a softening, and it's like, here's the golden nugget that's wanting to be liberated into this moment, and it's the capital R right time for it to happen.
Yeah, it reminds me of being with clients sometimes. They'll bring a dilemma or something, and I already get a sense of where we're going to go,
Mhm.
but I always kind of hold that, and then go into presence and allow the kind of journey to unfold. More often than not, just let
Mhm.
it unfold, and then because there's this truth that we discover in these practices often, that like if someone can discover something for themselves from their own inner experience, it's like a more powerful insight. But the thing is, you can get also attached to that being like the way reality is, and what you're playing with is like, well, actually, this intuition's actually already here. What if we play with, and we, if we're both in agreement, why don't we play with me actually just trying to put it out now? Um, that makes sense to me. It's like a new way to play, new level on the game.
And it's also in a egalitarian relationship. This wasn't with a client. This is just
Yeah,
in a relating thing. So that also that'd be a potential interesting line too, of the distinction when you're in a coaching or space holding orientation versus just a peer to peer unfolding.
yeah, yeah. because there's a high bar I think we have in these practices of being able to stay present in the field and not like default to our meaning making, or yeah, being able to really listen and wait for the depth to emerge. But again, that can be then the new crutch of like, this is the thing I always have to do. It's always listen and let things emerge. And
well, and it touches into this shadow, or this aspect of a lot of the we space practices and therapies. And I'm living in a community home right now in Puerto Rico that's a hub for transformation, both in inner and outer worlds. But we can sort of get on this treadmill where we're always processing stuff, and we're always healing, and we're always working through stuff. And that in and of itself, from zooming out and looking at it, which is, what you and I are doing right now, it's going, wait a minute, there is more to life than sitting down and processing my experience, or going through an intentional healing practice. Like you and I were talking about earlier, you also buy a house, or you have a romantic partnership, or children to take care of, or want to go play soccer or something. I mean, there's it's what is it I want to say? I've been finding quite a bit of passion in going, okay, I want to be in a we space, an intentional, conscious, resource we space, basically all day, every day. And I don't want to be processing and doing healing work all day, every day.
yeah,
so.
well, it makes total sense, because the analogy I would have is like, I mean, if you want to be a star tennis player, or you want to be the best tennis player you can be, and you're passionate about that, if you spend your whole time like improving your technique, or doing physio on your weaknesses, you're not going to get very far. You have to get out there, and you have to go and compete with the best players, and you've got to take on the challenge of being watched and assessed and just all these things, but especially just being in the real environment of playing tennis. And I think the analogy would be like, you're kind of tired of just doing your physio sessions and you're practicing your technique, because that is all in service of living a more full, engaged life. And I totally get it, because it's such a beautiful art of itself. It can become an end of itself, and some people might be their mission to be like an amazing coach or a facilitator, so they're just going to continually cultivate that capacity. And I still kind of do that, so I love it. And I'm with you as well. I think this is where we've been resonating together. Like when I lead courses now, what really lights my fire now is the arranging the roles before with my team, and trying to get it actually clear, and doing that where you've got the consciousness piece, but you also got a sharp eye on whether it's going into process actually is like for the practice room, and not for the the meeting you're having beforehand. But then not then like separating it, and it's like, no, the setting the boundary around, no, this is what we're doing now, is the deeper practice. Actually, it's engaging in the world and still trying to show up in the practice, but not relying on actually all the principles and methods you're actually using underneath, the meditative awareness that you're using underneath to create these powerful group experiences. So I'm totally with you. And also the excitement of like being a team leading an event, and we've got to create agreements, we've got to meet each other, we've got to do practical stuff, and we've got to do that well, and that's got to be clear whose roles who. And then if there's always some challenge with it, and then how do we meet that? That's where I love that part. And I notice as I engage in that, that's also what I need also to be a good husband. And that's what I need to deal with, like the kind of logistics of buying a house or sorting out my driver's license renewal, or like and all these areas are actually like the advanced play. That's actually what all the practice was actually originally in service of, actually. So it's really important to apply, or to bring what we're cultivating into that. And actually it becomes so enjoyable. It's like, that's what I love. Like marketing, I had this wake up recently where I'm like, marketing is amazing. Like, it's not this thing that I have to do so I can do the thing that I love, which is working with people, which I do love. But it's like, hang on a second, it's 21st century. I'm like a media person. I'm like a business owner. I'm like a technician on a computer. Like, what, I've got all these amazing things that I can do and learn about. And marketing is actually, well, a market seller would be selling their goods that they believe in to the world, and it's being able to find your message. It's being able to engage. It's a learning process that you're going to continually refine and get better at. And there's these temptations to be more commercial and less connected to you. So you got to navigate the temptations. And so it's actually, yeah, it's that is definitely where my aliveness is.
Yeah, I feel full resonance with you in this. I'm enjoying, so you and I have this shared field around being athletes, growing up playing all different kinds of sports and playing pretty competitively. So that's
Yeah.
I love yeah, we do all the training and all the physio and get all our reps in practice, and ultimately, we want to play. We want to play and get out on the field and work together as a team. And
Yeah, and the truth is, we do all this practice because we want to play, and the truth is, we don't want to play as well, because when we play, our weaknesses get shown up. Where we need to practice more shows up. All our self-consciousness and shadow shows up. So it's like we totally don't want to play at the same time, and that's where the playing then becomes important.
Yeah.
Because if you want to do deep shadow work, start showing up with your partner and telling them what you need, or try and market your coaching that you've been putting off for a while, and and do it as badly as you're meant to do it for the level you're at. But if you can do that consciously, you're going to improve so quickly. But deeper down, you're also going to be more connected to what, yeah, is really guiding us in all this.
Can you say more about what's really guiding us in all this?
Yeah, it seems another piece of your earlier question of what's really moving me these days. Yeah, just this question you asked me, like, what is really guiding me? What is my kind of guiding light or star? And am I, yeah, really asking, like, am I really living with that as my, fully commit to that being my guide, or where I move from? So like right now, if I ask that, I always get this kind of deep sense of emptiness. I think it might also be an image at first. That's as deep as I can go right away. And then more of a feeling comes in now. Something very deep, quiet, and intelligent. A few years ago, I started going to church, because it was like I knew I would get something from it. I knew, like, someone's reading from the Bible, I can definitely hear non-dual truths. Like, doesn't matter if I think the person's coming from something more ethnocentric, or but as I went there more and more, I actually felt like I was being transformed in a way that surprised me, because I was totally right that I could have a transcendental experience listening to someone preach about, you know, the book of Joshua or something, but and actually being more blown away by the Bible than I was expecting, and yeah, that was all good, learning about the mystical side of Christianity as well, and how deep that is, not knowing that beforehand, like how deep that goes. It's as deep as any of the other mystical traditions, but you know what we're talking about now. But the thing that one of the things that surprised me was these Christians, which I would say are kind of, you know, your normal kind of modern Christians in Amsterdam. Like, they're not reading integral theory or, you know, looking at mystical texts. They're following the Bible and doing it in a more modern way than I imagine most churches, but it's pretty standard religious context. Like, I started getting really inspired by the people there, actually, like, and seeing this, you know, thing I learned as a child of, like, kind of laughing at Christians, like, why'd you go to church if your life, you seem to have as many problems as anyone else, like, what good is your religion? But it's a pretty cynical view, and it's like, but I felt quite inspired by how much they put God as the center of their life, and Jesus, the symbol of love and consciousness for them. It's really a dedication to putting that first. And I often find, even actually here with you, that, and with the audience, I'm a little shy to put, you know, I didn't start with this as like, yeah, you put God first, or you put the deepest thing first. But what I found being in church is that they did that, at least in the sermons I went to. Yeah, so I find myself being deeply inspired each week now, going to church with this, because it feels like a place where I can check in with, am I really putting what feels deepest and truest first, and seeing more clearly where, you know, this idea of false idols, it's kind of practical. Like, I'm putting money before truth, or even if I'm putting my family needs before, like, really what most deeply matters. It's just really good to have a space and time to really contemplate that.
Yeah, I love that you said what deeply matters, and it reminds me, you mentioned Stefan at the beginning of our recording. So Stefan and I led a workshop together at Circling Festival called Sourcing the Code, and we you know, got together, put everyone in dyads, and then we invited people to you know, close their eyes, and can invite the listeners to do this now. Anyone who's listening to the recording, if you want. And we just invited folks to close or lower your eyes and allow what matters most to you, like what's most essential for you to come into your awareness, to come into your heart.
And can I add to that?
Yeah, please.
To notice what comes up into your heart as you ask this question, what most matters, and at the same time to touch into what is that place or that beingness, that what matters most, that arises from. This the part of your experience that is the most fundamental, that everything else is sourced by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in our, in our workshop, and in this moment, staying connected to where everything is sourced from, the aspect of ourselves that everything is sourced from, and also being connected to what matters most. We led a 2-hour workshop on what it's like to be in relationship from this place. I notice my heart is really opening quite a bit as I open my eyes and come into relationship with you.
Yeah, for me, it's like a sense of resting. It's like the kind of rest I feel when I know I've been in deep sleep, compared to a night where I know I didn't get that much of that.
Mm. Yeah, so this is a all day, everyday practice for me right now, staying connected to where everything is sourced from and what arises in the invitation of what matters most in this moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really can transform simple decisions or difficult decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I notice how sometimes it feels very palatable and easy to tune into, and sometimes I notice it seems like it is less palatable. I think they're even the most important times to still have the intention. Just reminding myself of that right now.
Mm-hmm. It feels like I'm having a moment of just, gosh, I'm really so grateful to be connected to you in this way and from this place in this moment. It's a particular texture or particular flavor of nourishment that's super supportive for me right now.
I start to notice you again, and yeah, knowing that you've been navigating a not insignificant challenge recently. Seems like yeah, can see holding that challenge in this deep place right now.
Yeah, this is my intention is to be with my experience from this place. and to be with the challenges and the crazy stuff life throws at us from here.
Mm. Yeah, I also get in touch with something that's a little more painful in me, like a deep holding around my stomach. Yeah, it's quite tender. Feels like the presence around that kind of holding, but it's also revealing that deeper tension.
Several things happen for me as you say this. There's an impulse with a little bit of a pause of like, I want to ask you more about that, and I'm aware that that could take you into a process. So there's like a pause of wanting to check, is that where we want to go? There's noticing, as you say that, noticing a tension in my, like right at the base of my spine, or right at the bottom of the pelvic bowl that I'm present to. And so that like sort of flutters up, and it's like, yeah, I could speak to that and be in relationship with you on that. And then there's almost like a falling backwards and opening and just going, okay, I'll just name what's here and see how it unfolds.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that some of the tension in my stomach eased a little. Imagine that was because you showed curiosity, and I felt an ease around exploring it in this context. And yeah, an ease because I know I'll go at the speed I want to. But feel open in this context. But I do notice it eases a little, and I don't know where we're going to go next. Do you feel my spine more as well on the base? It's like bubbling a bit.
Bubbling?
Yeah, it's like coming alive, and it's physically there's like movements happening there, like little bubbles almost.
As you say that, I took the deepest and easiest breath that I've taken in a bit. Yeah, it feels like something's eased around my solar plexus area. It's also revealed something a little more. I think it's a deeper layer in my left, right side, like quite a small dense, like sensation, fully connected to anger, early experiences of kind of neglect or deprivation or something. It's really held in there. I feel also quite like I don't feel like in revealing that I'm necessarily kind of doing shadow work or need to, but it feels nice to just share it because that's what's present. I'm smiling, appreciating you articulating what you want and almost like a soft boundary, like a this is here and I don't have to we don't have to go there.
Yeah, well, I'm not, yeah, wondering if like, yeah, no, that made sense. Like, it's an interesting context to play with this, like being in a podcast, a kind of public forum. It's like we're navigating, it seems, what we've been talking about, where it's like there being choice around whether you go inwards, in what way you go inwards.
There's quite a bit of energy and aliveness over here around when you said the anger. It felt really powerful in the body when you said anger. And I know before the recording we had touched on anger and um, ways that I don't remember what word we used, suppressed anger or dampened anger. And there's quite a bit of
Mm.
aliveness and energy over here for um, talking
Mm.
about anger, the creative power underneath the anger. Um, I've had several experiences recently where I've accessed this deep, deep anger. And of course, under that, like primordial power is the term you and I were using in the park in Amsterdam together.
Yeah,
Um, but like the way that that's coming online and yeah, to just be in, there's quite a bit of aliveness over here around in this line of exploration. How's that for you to
yeah,
hear? Yeah.
yeah. It's nice. I notice I allow more space for what I would, yeah, call a primal anger.
Mm, mm,
And yeah, in my journey with that recently, I mean, I've done all the kind of, therapeutic approaches and things around anger and explored it a lot in circling. Yeah, yeah, circling was always brought up, giving me the most access to emotions. I've done a lot of in the moment exploring with it. And my sense of the layer I'm exploring now is it gives me a different feeling of what anger is to what I had previously. And like, I think a lot of the times when I hear people talk about their like repressed anger, it's almost like gives a sense that there's like this clear energy that they know that they're holding down and in what way they're holding it down. And it seems more true to me that this anger that I'm starting to open up with, especially with a particular mentor who's been very skillful with me in it, is that it's like this little tension I felt in my stomach. So these like little tensions in the body that are almost so familiar that you're like, oh yeah, I've always had that, or that's that old injury that or I've always been a bit tight in my ribs or whatever. But my hips always ached a little bit, like, and it's kind of dismissed. But it's like these really subtle ways body's holding are the repression, or are the way you've learned to to handle this strong emotion. And as I find ways to allow that to come more into my being, I can feel the play between the tensions and this aliveness that seems to kind of seep out of my bones almost. And it is alive, but it's not like alive in the way, when someone's like, like, I'm angry and like, fuck off, and trying to embody it. There is something to that can give an imprint for sure. But it feels like it just, yeah, emerges and organizes my internal experience, the tensions release. and it's like a slower, like emergent, empowering experience, but very energetic, very real. It doesn't need the searching. And it also shows up in connection, where it's like when I notice I subtly withdraw, or noticing where I actually subtly don't want to explore can be a real key. So when you're really keen and eager and you want to go deep, if you think that you only want to go deep, I don't think you're fully in touch with the full range of what's inside of you, unless you're someone that, is very unique. That there's, it seems right that there are parts of us that are like, this is not fun for me, or this is not, or I don't trust this fully, or this in some ways is difficult. It seems like that is also very connected to, what it's kind of a doorway to this more primal anger.
I notice as you're speaking, again, I'm still connected to this point at the base of the spine and the base of the pelvis. And it's, as you mentioned, there's subtle and not so subtle ways that tension is held in the body when the energy's not flowing quite as freely as it could or it wants to. And I love that you mentioned the pace of this particular kind of power. Like, it's not, for me, it shows up way less as the rah power. And there's a gift in going at the pace that it's like, it's like a titration or a slow pace, and it, being at the root of the spine, the base of the pelvis, things around safety and like core attachment and everything's okayness, fundamental okayness, everything's okay. These kinds of things, it's for me, it's helpful to really slow down and just be present to the organic unfolding, as opposed to perhaps manufacturing a big display of power. It's a very different kind of power.
Yeah. Well, being with you now, what I am in touch with is where through my practice, I got, I love this sense in circling that you can like slow down and be mindful with someone, and that also kind of paralleled the way I'd learned to distance in connection because of a deep sense of unsafety, that if I could withdraw my life force, maybe that would keep me safe, something like that. And so actually my circling practice, in a way, this mindfulness and slowing down and presence gave me this deeper access, which was amazing. All the stuff we talked about earlier, psychedelic, emotional opening and intimacy. And yet it also kind of dovetailed or kind of combined with this early way of suppressing or holding back some of my life force. And so what I've been playing with, and I'm doing it a little bit with you, is including you more relationally in the process, like just letting you know, that resonates or not, or telling you how my process is unfolding while I'm with you. And there's also that, I think there's a play for some people who find it hard to slow down and feel, and then actually those that have learned actually to suppress that way and actually want to lean into engaging more, emanating more of what's in them relationally.
my hands come into my heart, I'm feeling a moment of appreciation for feeling safe to explore this with you right now.
Mm. Yeah, what's that like?
You know, when I sink into this place, that the base of the pelvis, the base of the spine, it like the killer in me lives in this area, for example. The primal, territorial, like you know, if you threaten my family, I'll end you, kind of.
Mm.
That aspect of my psyche, that aspect of my being lives down here. And what I'm appreciating is there's a safety of being able to relate with you in this. Number one, because I get a felt sense that you get it. So I feel safe to share this and not be judged. Like that there's going to be a curiosity and a welcoming and a
Mm.
holding. There's probably a little bit of safety that we're on a Zoom call together. And so there's not, sometimes there's a little bit of sometimes there's a manager in me. There's a manager up more in the head who's like, hey, if we really let the lid off this power and this primalness, we don't know what's going to happen. And
Mm.
other people could really get hurt.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, that can be huge. I've seen that a lot in groups with, yeah, especially with men, but women as well. But yeah, I've seen it more with men where it's like to be with someone that can encourage or meet very strong feeling and power, you know, and wanting to express force, but isn't terrified of it. And a lot of people should be terrified of it if they're smaller or and they haven't had trusting experiences with men with their power, and certain women, of course, or all women actually. But yeah, to really feel you can be with someone that can encourage you to fully go for it is powerful. I think that's why we love wrestling and things like that.
yeah, and it's interesting hearing you say that because I had an opportunity a few days ago to push, like three guys made a line to push against me, and I got to push against all three of these guys with everything that I had and push them across a room and like, you know, yell and access my primalness and really get into just feeling how strong this body is.
Mm.
And then a couple of nights ago we did jujitsu, and I got to, you know, do roll with a few people and do that. And I love I love these practices so much, and they also still for me come from a place a little bit above the point that I'm talking about. And that's the thing that talking to you today, there's even more clarity of like, yeah, this has been part of the challenge with this is that um, it's inviting a new practice or a new way of relating that's, I can't even tell you how vulnerable it is. It's like, it's so vulnerable. It's so precious. It's so, I don't know if dangerous is the right word, but just potent. Like there's a real elixir of palpable potency down there at the base of the spine.
Yeah,
And
makes me imagine that, like, I don't think I've seen someone around a kind of that physicality, and especially something like jujitsu really open the space for like okay, me and you are just about to roll. And then it's like, hang on a second, what about the parts of you that are actually scared of each other? How about the part of you that doesn't want to exert yourself? Or what about the part of you that actually doesn't want to follow the rules and actually just wants to gouge out the other's eye or dominate them, or but also don't like start to put that on if it's not there yet, or like let's just go really with what's here now. And like maybe you're actually just in a completely, like, you don't really know what you want. You kind of get this whole physical thing and being strong and powerful, and you'd like that, but you don't really know if you've got that instinct. You don't know if you feel scared or anything. You're kind of just in a kind of place, actually. Why don't we just lean into wrestling from here?
Mm-hmm.
Then I can imagine, yeah, this more primal level might come out and play.
Yeah, the word safety pops again, and I love when I hear you, I'm like, oh yeah, like what is, the interpenetration of jujitsu and we spaces, right? Like intentional, and we jujitsu has agreements, like if someone taps, everything's over, but even more, relating from the present moment and getting into our inner world and what's happening for us in real time, that feels juicy.
Yeah, but also bringing in, like, yeah, my 2-year-old daughter just arrived. I heard her. And also this reality that when you're doing jujitsu, there might come a time in my life that I really have to protect that little girl that I'm absolutely crazy about. And like, and there was also something about earlier when you were saying about anger and the protector and the like that strong impulse that you could kill from. Well, actually, like, these moments are coming up all the time in my experience of being a father. Like, some parent, you're playing and they protect their child, but they do it a little bit over the line for you, or what actually happened the other day. My daughter was with her grandfather, and there was a guy that was slightly drunk that tried to help her get up when she fell over. And I think these moments bring up this base energy. And what's very easy to do, and it's really humbling and vulnerable when I see this impulse in me to go kind of maximum into socialized mind and just start being polite. And that is like the killer of the killer energy. Like, and when I see myself in that, it's like, oh, whoa. And then I want to practice. Then me and my wife want to like come together and be like, okay, you be the drunk guy. Like, I don't want to freeze in this moment. And I don't want to go over the top and like my grandfather, my father-in-law did, and always get in a fight. But I want this person to know this energy, and in the 1 in a million or billion chances this guy is actually a real threat, I want that energy to be fully online, and I give everything I can to protect that little being, because it will be a devastation if I don't show up in that energy then. So it's like, yeah, when we're doing jujitsu, yeah, let's make it safe, and like we're here to kind of enjoy our time. But the other thing we're doing is we're preparing ourselves for some real stuff that could eventually happen. Hopefully it never will for us, but we want to be prepared for that stuff.
Yeah, it's hearing you, what gets touched in me is like, so I've been I mean, I named this earlier. I've been in martial arts gyms my entire life. I've been an athlete my entire life. Like this body feels pretty well resourced, like strength wise and protective wise. And there's also like an uncomfortability with how powerful that I can be with the body, but also with awareness or with subtle energy. I mean, there's quite a bit of power and capacity, and what I'm appreciating in this moment in conversation with you is feeling more freedom for cultivating spaces to explore and just get to know these aspects of myself that walking around in the regular world I just don't find a lot of context that I get to play in.
And cultivating it, like we've been touching on. I like this piece, like that it's real. Like if you cultivate that, you will expand the possibilities. Like say one day something really terrible happens, and or you know, something shifts in society where it's possible you're in an environment where three of your good friends are in serious trouble, and you can step up in a way because you've cultivated that. So really is, you know, you're expanding your possibility of being a protector, and surely that's a, you know, a good thing if it feels aligned for you to do that. But I think it's a real thing. It's not just a practice. So it's not just training, it's real life applications possible. And even if it is that you never use that energy, every environment you go in, everyone will feel energetically that you have that potential. So those that are on your side will feel safer, and those that are not on your side, not on your side with commas, will you know, feel that there's something they don't want to push in you. Yeah, unwisely. And I think that's important. Yeah.
As you're speaking, my awareness is really zooming out and holding planet Earth in awareness, and just looking at seeing the implications of this dormant primalness, this dormant primal power. And like I can see people at bars drinking alcohol, like sort of just keeping what's happening deep down there at the base of the spine and in the pelvis at bay. And I can see planetary systems where, you know, that just wouldn't have a chance against a humanity who stands up from our primal power and says, hey, this has gotten us to here and it's not working anymore. We need to go a new direction. This is the way we're all going to go together. Let's move. But there's like a visceral, vital, palpableness that just feels like it's really wanting to bloom and illuminate on a planetary level right now. Might just be my projection onto planet Earth, but that's this is what's happening for me.
Well, I like the analogy of like when you said about your physicality, it's like you've got a motorbike that's, you know, it's got a 900cc engine. It's like a big engine, and yeah, most of the time, and it could be even like 10 years in a you could go on the roads and not need that extra power. And that yet the one time you do need it, because there could be something serious, you've got that engine there ready.
Right.
And it's always nice, even when you're going slow, just to feel that that's there and it's working. It's not getting neglected. Because yeah, when you've got a nice big bear there, he likes to likes to exercise and feel the full potential of itself. But I also think that's true for anyone, whatever kind of the potential of your kind of athleticism is, just cultivating that. And the amazing things with the modern kind of martial arts is you can seriously upgrade your capacity very quick. Seriously, like you can protect yourself from a way bigger amount of dangers quite quickly. And I totally get that that's not a calling for some people, and wouldn't recommend then that as a practice.
When you say that, I have all these, there's a saying in martial arts gym that the most dangerous person in the gym is the newbie. Like
Yeah.
it's, there's the guys who can kill you in a martial arts gym are the nicest guys. They're the ones in there laughing and relaxing. And it's like, if you go there, they can really mess you up. But it seems to be pretty relaxed, like feeling good in the body. Like, yeah. But the new guys, I mean, I remember a year ago being in, rolling in jujitsu, and there was a guy and he's like, oh, it's my first day. And he was just shaking. He was so in, my experience of him was he was so in fight or flight. And we're doing like a few drills to basically get warmed up, and he's putting his elbow around my neck and squeezing it harder than, like basically giving it everything he can. I'm like, I just grabbed him. I'm like, hey buddy, like, you know what I mean? Like he needed some nervous system regulation, some breathing, and like, hey, let's just take a moment. Let's take a moment and calm down so you don't kill me while we're getting warmed up.
Yeah, well, there's also something real with a beginner that they don't follow the normal patterns. So when you get more trained, actually, there is a weakness that you become
totally
entrained in the patterns,
cultured,
which is also what we're talking about with circling and these practices we do. That like what's really good for me as a leader is to do intro nights, because when I do these advanced groups, it's amazing how deep we can go. But I can get comfortable with like, oh yeah, my practice is going really well and my leadership's going really well. Then I go and do a beginner's night, and then someone comes in with something that's totally like a challenge that I'm not expecting, and it throws me off. And then I'm like, whoa, yeah, maybe, yeah, back to the basics. Like, and yeah, so I think there's a good corollary between these martial arts and the practices we're doing. Mystical arts, mixed mystical arts, I like to call it.
Yeah, I love what you're naming here. Really, I love the back to the basics. That's just like a timeless phrase.
Yeah. How's your practice going with marketing your business or meeting your daughter in the morning? Or how do you really feel about if you got into something dangerous? Like, do you feel prepared for that? Yeah.
I'm feeling a shift in the energy, like we might start to transition.
Yeah.
And yeah, it makes like saying that, feeling this, I want to ask, maybe I'll ask you if we did 10 hours of podcast recording and kept fleshing out topics, is there anything that you'd really want to say and have people hear before we close?
I think the last thing would be fun to just kind of give the summary of, and maybe we'll have another conversation at some point, would be on this idea of like the mixed mystical arts of self-realization or self-development practices, and I think it's got this, a mixed martial art is actually like being cross-paradigmatic, like you know, we are navigating waters where we need kind of therapeutic awareness. Like earlier we were touching on anger, and then we also need meditative awareness where we understand states of consciousness and this kind of psychedelic experience, and almost shamanic capacities as well, and becoming more artful at understanding like how paradigms work and how we can become more skillful at cross-pollinating the paradigms. I think it's really an essential awareness, and something I really love developing, yeah, especially with our in our trainings. But it's because it's again, it's really good, I think, practice, especially if you've got competence in a practice, you know, like I have with circling. When I'm in a circling space, like I sometimes I can feel like, you know, the black belt that can like with his, you know, one hand kind of take on the world. But that's also a dangerous place to be, because like if this practice is about the art of living and being truthful, then this this kind of competence in one paradigm can be an illusion, because when I go into another paradigm, suddenly I'm like a little clumsy, and I'm like a little defensive, and I'm like embarrassed that I can't do something, and like, so that's why I love going into these other paradigms, because it's strengthening me not only to this new reality where I can learn new competence and see new things, but it's also strengthening my capacity to move between paradigms. And you'll never get the true transmission of Zen or of, you know, a really high quality trauma therapy if you've not really been in the territory. You can read the books, you can do a few sessions, but if you go the distance and really deepen into that paradigm, you're going to get the fuller transmission. But then we have to be skillful with, like, we can't just devote our life to all paradigms. We need to become skillful at navigating what are the ones that really resonate for us and which cross-pollinate with the most skill. And I think that's what us guys in this field are getting good at. We're like learning like how these different practices integrate and which ones are really like key and seem to make the biggest difference. Yeah. But still, it's just unfolding so quick, and we're learning so much. And then the last thing on that is there's plenty of research actually to say that, you know, sports people and people in lots of different fields, science and the people that are cross-pollinating are developing faster and more complexity. So it's worth taking on that vulnerability of the different paradigmatic challenges you're going to get.
Yeah, I what happens to me hearing you is just connecting to how much I love having context where I feel like the black belt and the teacher, and I also love context where it's like I have just no clue what's going on, and
Yeah.
total innocence and novice and beginnerness, and how important it is to have that full spectrum in our life.
Yeah.
Really be a student, to really be a teacher, and also everything in between, to be able to be a peer. That whole spectrum is juicy.
And that's where also becoming a boundary architect is important.
Yeah, do you want to plug your course? I'd love to create a space for you to share information about your course.
Well, I think the main thing to say, because this course is for people who've already been through one of our, you know, advanced trainings or 6-month trainings, but that's the place to start with our circling. You can go to Circling Europe, and we've got a lot of online stuff for people that are in other countries. And if you're in Europe, we've got plenty of events. We'll be coming to America as well. But yeah, circling's, I feel like circling is like jujitsu of the martial art world. If you know jujitsu, you're going to be pretty good. Like, that's pretty good self-defense. Like, it's pretty stellar. And with circling, you're going to develop such a capacity to be present, to navigate intimacy, to deal with deeper kind of trauma realms, and but to navigate it in a fluid, more authentic way. It's very powerful. And then we've got this more advanced practice of surrendered leadership that you can learning to really lead from surrender and presence, and play with collective intelligence. And it's, I mean, you know exactly what I'm gonna say, but like when a group of people practicing this come together, it's unbelievable what people create. It's like it almost surpasses like what a therapist could do with, great therapists can create such good processes, but then what a group of people being present can do just intuitively, it's unbelievable. And but it's so multidimensional, because you don't know if it's going to be a therapeutic process or a meditative opening or a group constellation or collective trauma. And so we do a lot to navigate that kind of territory, as well. So check out our website, and we've got a YouTube channel, and you can learn more there.
Yeah, beautiful.
Cool,
All
man.
right.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I noticed a big smile on my face and feeling lots of joy and just appreciation and gratitude for you being here and being available for this.
Cool, man. Well, big love. I love what you're doing here, and enjoyed your other episodes. And good luck with it.
Yeah, and I'm a full yes to doing another recording, so we'll connect and see when the time's right.
Cool, man. Big love.
Yeah, you as well. Enjoy. See you.
Bye now.